Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from a voice note that I received. So this is the narration of that voice note that I received. The narration reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story as anonymous? My own wickedness, it does not know any bound at all. I am a woman who is only aged 43 years old. I have 3 kids, and all of my children, I had them with different fathers. And when I had my kids, like each and every time that I would start dating another man, my mother will take me, then she would perform some rituals on me, because specifically she said that she didn't want me to have a child that would be a boy. My mother used to say that once you have given birth to a boy, then you have to know that he is only going to take care of his own mother-in-law, and he would never take care of you. And the examples that my mother would give me were the examples of my own brothers, because I had one of my brother who was married already when I was still young. He never did anything for my mother. So I hated that idea of me one day having a child, and this child being a boy, and after that he will start taking care of his mother-in-law and ignoring me, just like what our brother did. We suffered a lot. My brother was working as a soldier, even though he was not earning a lot of money, but he was supposed to take care of his own mom, but he never did that. He would only return back to the village, and when he would return back to the village, he would be returning back with nothing, but we would hear stories of how he was taking care of his mother-in-law. This made me to hate any man that would say that if we have a child together, I want us to have a boy rather than to have a girl. My mom raised me in that kind of a way. If this was the only case, maybe I would have said that my mom was a bitter woman. But my mother as well, she was a witch. She was into witchcraft, even though she was not that type of a witch whereby when it is night time, she can actually get out of the house. My mom was just sort of like a herbalist, but who did a lot of witchcraft in the things that she was doing. If you would come to her looking for any herbs, even if it meant that you were looking for evil potions, my mom will just sell to you those evil potions. She would not even ask you, who did you want to hurt with those evil potions that you would have come to get from her. So my mom, from a very young age, she taught me all about those evil potions. Growing up, I also knew how to cast spells on other women, like if we were into competition, because I started dating men when I was still very young. So she had taught me how to cast spells, like if you were in competition with other women for a man that you'll be dating at the same time, I would then go to the river and I would perform the rituals that my own mom had taught me. My mother, unfortunately, she passed away, but before my mother had passed away, she had instilled this fear into me that if I give birth to a boy, then he is not going to think about me, he would forget about me. The herbs that she would use on me was such that when I would be having intercourse with a man that would end up impregnating me, I would only be able to have a girl instead of having a boy. So I have 3 children, all of them are girls, and the thing that is now happening to me, Brother Nashi, I have been causing a lot of confusion to these children of mine. It started from a very young age. I started doing the same thing that my mother was doing to me. My mom would actually give me a lot of pressure, wanting me to date other men that were quite older than I was. Even some of my teachers, my mom would pressurize me to sleep with my teachers. And since I grew up in that environment, I did this to my own kids. From an age whereby they were able to start dating, I didn't even mind when I would see my kids in the street, like just walking with a boy. I would never get angry. What I would do is that when she would return back home, I would only tell her that she needed to condomize and she needed to make sure that she was not going to fall pregnant for the fool that I saw her walking with. And if she was going to fall pregnant, she had to fall pregnant for a man who will be able to take care of us. And my girls girls, they learned very well. None of them ever fell pregnant like at the time when I fell pregnant, because I had my first child when I was really young, and back in those days family planning was not that common. So my girls were quite wiser. And the thing that I would do is that when my child would go out on a date, when she would come back, I would ask her how much money her boyfriend would have given her. Then I would take that money and I would put it to good use, like buying some groceries for the house and for our upkeep. Then what happened is that my eldest daughter, I think that she then grew tired of everything that was happening, because this was after she had gotten this other man who had impregnated her. This man was a married man, but that man, from the bottom of his heart, he truly loved my daughter. But I could not allow my daughter to go and get married, because I was scared that if I let them go, they were going to forget about me, and I wanted them always by my side. So I caused a lot of confusion in her marriage until she then broke up with her husband, because when she would come to me asking for advice, I would always manage to give her bad advice, such that she was always stubborn towards her first husband. She returned back home and we continue living our life. They were having their boyfriends, and their boyfriends were the ones that were responsible for taking care of us. I think that my firstborn daughter, she then grew tired. She then found another guy. They just met. I think when they met, it was just through social media, but she didn't want to tell me about this. When she met this man, this was in 2021. My daughter at that time, she was working in another city, and she didn't tell me exactly what was going on. She only told me that she was on a bus, she was going to South Africa. I then said that it is fine, but I had that fear. I didn't want to lose control over her, like the control that I had when she was still back home. She then went to South Africa and met up with a guy who had promised her the job, but they ended up like staying together, and they had a child together. My brother, this man, he is a good man. He actually even raised some money, and he came and he paid for the bride price. He did this at the end of 2021. After staying with my daughter for a year, he came and he paid for her bride price. That was good, and I was supposed to be happy about it. But I don't know, Brother Nashi, I just felt angry about the way that my daughter had gotten married to this man without ever informing me. That anger, Brother Nashi, it kept on building and building. After she had given birth, I even felt angered because she gave birth to a boy. So I felt it that I had to do something about it. I actually wanted to make sure that she was going to lose her child, even at the time when she was still pregnant. Back home, what I'll do is that I would even perform some rituals that my mom had taught me. Like, if you want another woman to have a miscarriage, there was a way that my mom had told me to do. There was this other doll of hers. This doll, it represents a pregnant woman. So after saying some rituals towards that doll, then you just take a needle and you start pinching that doll on the stomach until you start to see the blood coming out of that doll. I did that, Brother Nash, but each and every time that I would try to do that, I would just see that nothing was happening to that doll that my mom left for me. So I waited for my daughter to give birth, and I received the sad news that my daughter, she had given birth to a boy child. I then thought that it was far much better for me to follow her to South Africa so that I can finish off this work that I had started. My wickedness, Brother Nashi, it does not know any bound. When I came to South Africa, I had a lot of foodstuffs, like what we grow in the village, like your ground nuts and other things that we grow. But all of those food stuff that I had brought for them, I had used a lot of charms on them so that they can start fighting in their marriage. I came, Brother Nash, and when I came, I even felt that there were some evil spirits that were following me. The time that they took me from the bus going with me to their place, even the baby was scared of me. Throughout the night, the baby cried so much. What people do not know is that when a baby, like a newborn baby, cries and non-stop, once the baby starts refusing the milk, then it means that the baby will be seeing a spirit, an evil spirit, or the baby will be sensing something that will be evil. In that time, it was me. I was the evil I was the evil presence that this baby was feeling around, and the baby cried, Brother Nashi. The baby felt so sick because I was using some charms. Like when I would be cooking, when I would say to my daughter, just rest, let me cook for you, I would actually pour in some charms. These charms that I was pouring, I wanted to make sure that she was going to lose her own child. But one day when I was looking at my daughter, I just felt so sorry for my daughter, and I stopped whatever that I was doing. I then went outside and I pretended that the onion that I was cutting was the one that had made me to start crying, but I was actually crying because of my own wickedness. I then went to the bathroom. This was after I had taken some of those charms that I had in my bag that I wanted to use to finish off this job that I had started. I went and I flushed them. Then I returned back into her house and we just started joking and talking, and my daughter, she never suspected anything. I returned back home, Brother Nashi. Right now my daughter, she is still living with her husband, but sometimes I feel so much hatred towards her husband. I feel so much hatred towards my own grandchild, because I preferred that if my daughter was going to give me a grandchild, I wanted it to be a granddaughter than for it to be a grandson, because I knew that if it is because I know that this son that she gave birth to will never remember her once he gets older and once he gets married. Dear listeners, right there was a voice note that I received. Then I had to give you this narration. then it will give me money. And as for the conditions that it will be giving me the money, no one even knows. The healer said that it will depend with what the rat wants. So this rat, it is still there in the bush. I don't know when it is going to come back to me, but I am just waiting for that day when it would appear to me. Then it is going to tell me what exactly it wants from me.